Good morning. I hope you're in high spirits after lunch. It is important indeed, so we would like to welcome you to open lectures, and I hope there will be a dialogue with the audience. So all the speakers are excited, and will you use the microphone? It's up to you. I can give you mine. I would like to introduce Mr. Alexander Sorokoumov. Everyone is supporting you. Yes, you're absolutely right. Give him your warm applause, and you can support him with money. He won't reject it. Will you tell the title, the name of your talk? Okay, it is Cloud Technologies as an Integral Part of Business. So, let us start. Good afternoon, colleagues. First of all, I would like to ask a question. Do you understand what cloud technologies are designed for, or have you heard? Does the word ring the bell? Is it news or not news for you? So all those present know about it? Great. And the main value of cloud computing versus conventional IT is fastness and flexibility, agility for business to develop their own products and to address business tasks. So, why cloud is so very popular? Why is it a buzzword and a hype, both for fintech and traditional, conventional industries in the past 3 years? The time of allocating infrastructure and products has been reduced from 3 months to 3 minutes when using clouds through cloud providers, through API, through user interface. So it's 3 minutes for providing services and products, and not 3 months. The major benchmark for saving is 30%, and you can find statistics on the history of Sberbank using internal cloud. Sberbank developed private cloud, and our utilization has increased from 30 to 60% through using cloud technologies. Another thing is reliability. It's 99.99% reliability. It's not just the figure for marketing, it's the real indicator for reliability of data that is given by cloud providers thanks to replication of data within one platform, and as an exchange between the platforms. And it's not possible to achieve this indicator through conventional data centers. What is Safety X2? The cloud computation is superior to conventional computation, and there is a major oil company, and they've been thinking what to do, either to develop conventionally or to receive services from the cloud providers. One of their concerns was that, well, cloud is something that is owned by the others, and we won't be able to control it. So they performed a study, and they have uncovered that safety that is given by the cloud provider provider is twice higher than safety given by their own IT specialists. It is achieved through the economy of scale, and the number of the IT specialists who are specialists on cybersecurity is limited in Russia. And if every company and corporation will be developing their own cybersecurity division, there won't be enough specialists. And that's why there are a number of cloud technologies providers, and they attain the unprecedented level of security. And the security is indeed very tight, and so it is something that lack of, or the alleged lack of security is something that prevent the companies from using clouds. But security in the clouds is very tight. All the top companies in top 500 use clouds. So take education industry, for example. It processes 500 terabytes of traffic, and 21 million of students study in the world using cloud technology. It is not possible to handle that many customers building your own products. Or take streaming services that are linked to both the services and communication channels are not possible without cloud technologies or investments all around the country for establishment of CDN and or content distribution networks. Another interesting fact and figure, there were 11 IPOs of major tech companies. 7 of these did not use non-cloud technologies. These 7 startups were established in the cloud, and they declare that this is one of the features of their developments that make them very efficient and made them scalable, flexible, and protected. And I've been talking about the global trends and the successes gained, and I would like to talk about Russia now. Unfortunately, the picture is not that bright in Russia. Just 4% of infrastructure is used from cloud, and 96% is classical IT. So what the reason why? Because people are apprehensive, skeptical, they do not understand how it works. So when I talk about the global experience, there were 3 companies you all know well. They were developed in cloud, and they are quite successful. There is not a single public case when the company would be set up in the cloud and would achieve the valuation figures, and that will be high. So it's the vacuum information, lack of awareness is slowing down the development. However, the trend is good. There are 450 million rubles, dollars, that's the volume of the market, and the growth between 15 and 28 is 44%, and the prediction is that it will keep growing by 35% per year. And the trend is of using cloud technologies is very vigorous. The market is ripe for it. The market is ready for it. That's the message that I would like to give you, and it will help the businesses to grow. Please do not be scared, do not be afraid, and clouds makes it possible to receive any infrastructure you wish, and you can scale it up real fast, and you will have both flexibility and security. And what is good about it, and which makes me feel optimistic, is that 90% of IT leaders in the IT industry are prepared to use clouds. It is the statistics for top 300 corporate majors in Russia, and I think the other companies will be following the suit of the leaders, and I think will catch up with the world. That's about it, and I'm ready to take the questions from the floor, if any. What's Sber Cloud is? I have a slide. And I didn't want to do the sales talk, but our story started 4 years ago in Sberbank, and we started gravitating from legacy to cloud infrastructure, and it was virtual data center. We have covered a lot of ground in the past 4 years. We have received expertise now to establish a cloud provider, private cloud provider, and our purpose is to be one of the effectives. And last year I have defended my strategy. We have launched two key products. It is a virtual data center, and it is another service and platform, and we covered a lot of demand, and Sberbank is investing into creation of 4 platforms. It is 180 services, and I think in the near future we will catch up the gap between Google, Amazon, and the other platforms, and we will be a hyperscaler in Russia. That's what we are now, and what our ambition is for the next 2 years. So you plan to provide the services to Sberbank, or what? As a Sber Club, we provide the services to the group, and our main task is commercialization of the products, and eating your own dog food. It is something that we consume ourselves, but we are prepared to offer it to the market, because we are aware of how it works, which over there under the hood, and our task for this year is to catch up with the competitors, and next year we will launch the services which are not available at the market to the market. Thank you. When you talk about the services which are not available at the Russian market, what services do you mean with respect to the cloud technologies? I might sound too conservative, but now there are 3 major elements in the Russian cloud. One, it is hyperscalers. They account for 30% of the market. It is Amazon and Russia that are not used by corporations. It is ISV, the developers of software that are targeting the US market, and the other share of the market, 60%, it is cloud applications of the integrators. These are the companies that have been developing the turnkey applications and SaaS solutions for clients, and 10% or even less are tech companies. It is Mail, Yandex, Sbercloud, and MTS to some extent. It is what is in demand and what is not. It is not mature. It is the containers of the database that there's no high level of SLA, and I believe in cloud servers, and if the clouds are used properly, then the technologies make it possible to benefit the clouds. 300 applications. One is cloud-ready applications. It is to reduce the quantum of the infrastructure up to the virtual machine, and another is cloud-native applications. These applications are either multi-cloud, or the quantum is so small that it doesn't matter what kind of infrastructure underpins it. There are two providers that have serverless VMA and service containers. It is something that the current developers required yesterday. Nobody knows how to do it, and our ambition is to finish it within next 6 months, and then there will be other services which are technologicals, and these services will emerge gradually, and I think we will satisfy the customers with new releases. Talking about such services as database as a service and the container services are not something new. There are mature solutions in this area. And what I'm interested in, what do you think inside you is your competitive advantage that will give you a chance to catch up as WUS, Azure? Somebody has been working 10 plus or 7-8 years. So how do you think you will be able to bridge the gap between local players and global providers? Good questions. Thanks a lot for it. And let me answer the first part of it. This story is not new, and our task is to catch up and meet the requirements which are at the market. And it is not something that we are inventing new products. They ask us for it, and for them to develop their applications and without any headache. And if we do have a request, it means that there is maturity, and there are mature companies, and even then it's a question mark. So to answer the question how we will be catching up with those who have been working in the industry for some 10 years, first we see what is available in the market. We understand what is being used, because we are not in a silo. There are 13,000 developers, and those developers create applications every day, and we develop services, and the developers are creative, and they would like to use the best available practices, and they could see what's there abroad, and they can assess what's good and what is not, so we can prioritize and we can test those developments at live people. And another point, we have started investing into 4 platforms. It is unified front office. It is the platform to support business. It is data processing and RPA tools and free work, and it is something that does work in the bank, and correspondence platforms use that kind of applications, and not all the technologies are cloud native, and I apologize for using some of the technical terminology. If you do not understand those, please let me know, and I will either explain what it means or I will try to be simple. And our strategy is to switch over to cloud-native technologies, and I think I have given you the answer.
I'm sorry, we have very tight timing. If there are any questions to Alexander, feel free to contact him later personally. That was Alexander Sorokoumov from Sberbank Cloud. Thank you very much. And the next speaker is Andrey Aleksakhin. And Andrey will talk to the issue of reinventing bookkeeping for small businesses, the Department of Corporate Digital Businesses at VTB Bank. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We are having short lectures, so I'd like this lecture to be useful for you, and I'm going to tell you how we were launching our digital accounting project. I have little time, but I'll try to make it interesting for you. So at the beginning of the year, we started thinking about our team of digital corporate business. We thought of creation of a new non-finance service on digital financial accounting, and then just as a majority of our colleagues on this forum, we decided to choose digitalized accounting firms. We talked to the well-known players on the market, and we quickly realized that creating a product that we want, namely the outsource of accounting for a small company on a turnkey basis at the best price with the best quality, would be hard to achieve. Difficult first and foremost because mostly our colleagues were focused on the higher segment of the small businesses in terms of outsourcing, but we would like to work with brand new entrepreneurs. So we decided to do it from the scratch, and in a couple of months, and this is something that we're particularly proud of, in a couple of months we released a new mobile app called Cifra. And on the slide you can see the screenshots of the operational mobile app that you can upload. The anchor of this app is, of course, tax and financial reporting. We've prepared tax dashboard since it's outsourcing service on a turnkey basis, and it turned out to be very convenient. We provided our users with an opportunity to automatically upload extracts from other banks, and that helps you recover your tax reporting even in the middle of the reporting year, or you can make it easy and comfortable. There is also an accountant at your service who can support you in a 24/7 basis whenever there are any out-of-the-ordinary questions, and there are also services for self-employed. As in any product, once we launched the MVP, we've conducted a research, we've analyzed a number of deep interviews with our respondents, and we wanted to understand whether we've created a product that is actually wanted by small entrepreneurs. I'll skip through these slides and I'll show you the photos. So those are the key portraits that we've identified three groups. The first one being the beginners, the mid-level, and the advanced group. So the newcomers are the ones who are in the business for less than a year, next group from 1 to 3 years, and the expert group is starting from 6 years and more. And it is not necessary for us that they would be registered at a tax office. We are okay if those people are self-employed and they get their payments on their current account of an individual. So experts were considered to be a non-target audience, and the remaining two was split into further groups, and we called them, as you can see it on the slide, the first one being called That's Easy, the second one I'll delegate it to a professional, and the third one Help Me. So the first group is an individual entrepreneur paying a flat 6% tax rate without employees, who can work with accounting information, can easily read into the information law. They do not use any outsourced accountants, do not use any other services, because they want to do it on their own. The key purpose for this person is to provide for basic automation of the processes in their business, provision of a stable inflow of customers, and that's the key. The second group is a more mature entrepreneur who is delegating all those issues to the professionals. They turn over around 15 million rubles per year. That is also an individual entrepreneur, but the taxation mode where they are is not a flat rate of 6% or 15%, but it might be a source when you can deduct your expenses from level of income and pay taxes on that. What makes this group special is that they want to work with their accountants face to face. They want to know who that is, where they live, and they want to be able to punish them if they fail to deliver on their duties, which imposes additional problems, I would say, to this role, because this portrait of the group number 2 is a young advanced entrepreneur, and normally they have a certain lag in an account in talking to their accountant, because normally their accountant is a person aged 45 plus, and they're not asking for an access to the internet bank profile. They want simply to get a bank extract to be sent per WhatsApp. So the second group of our users do not want to go deeper into the things that are non-core to their businesses, and therefore cannot control the quality of work of their accountant. The best group we have at the moment is group number 3, we call it Help Me. Those are the entrepreneurs being in the business for less than a year, and they're constantly stressed. They are absorbing every single piece of information they can find, because they are afraid of all the scary stories they have heard about their colleagues and other entrepreneurs, that somebody might have lost and failed to report 1 ruble on their tax declaration, and the tax authorities blocked their accounts. So their search for information is poorly structured. The information flow they get is chaotic, and they use it as means of protection from stress. They listen to Business FM when they are driving, they're watching videos on YouTube, and we were very curious to learn from our respondents that even small entrepreneurs like that one are still subscribed to services called Glavbuch and Obrashonka. We were surprised to know that. So, in a portrait of this employee, they have no employees, this type of entrepreneur, flat tax rate of 6%, experience that's less a year, and a revenue of less than 1.5 million rubles per year. This is an advanced audience. They use online services mostly from their banks. The more advanced one are ready to pay to outsourced accountant. So our project is focused on those accountants and friends who tutor those people. So when talking to those customers, we realized the pains they're going through And that is what is happening at the very early stage of evolving of an individual entrepreneur. They're not willing to get registered at a tax office because they are afraid of all the paperwork they will have to go through. They are afraid to open up a settlement account because they think that they would have to fill in too many papers, and if they make a mistake, they're getting into big trouble. And this type of customers has a number of objectives they have to tackle. They cannot properly read into an agreement, they cannot prepare an agreement, they're afraid to do that, and that's what we help them to do. Another aspect is advisory and consultancy services. As for the group number one, that is called It's Easy, can be offered once in a while and might be required under very specific circumstances. While the third group, Help Me, they need very general information or just making them sure that they are doing the right and proper thing that they can develop, and they were very curious to learn about success stories and life hacks, and that's what inspired us to add additional functions in our app. Those are stories, and different groups of our customers had different attitude to that. At the moment, we're testing a content system in our mobile app that is generating relevant stories for each of the group members. So the first group considers to be something more of commercials and don't want to read it. The second group was interested in audio format much more than in a text format, and the group Help Me is ready to consume any format. They're very curious about it and they are eager to read and listen to it. Some exciting insights we've learned while talking about the individual entrepreneurs. So as for consultations, yes, there is a demand for that, and there is quite a number of services on the market offering different consultations, but not many people know it. We would like to provide those consultations in advance, so when the entrepreneur needs help, they know where to go. The beginners, especially in the third group, Help Me, do not know how to properly describe their problem, and our accountants have to ask a lot of questions and simply dig out this information from them in order to simply understand what is it that they need. Going out of the shadow is also an issue for some small entrepreneurs that are a target group of our project. Those are very frequently the ones who want to open up a business and register it at a tax office, is the demand from their big companies partners. Sometimes those big companies help, but increasingly frequently the beginning entrepreneurs use offers from the banks and bank services. Hiring employees is yet another stop factor that brings many entrepreneurs to the gray zone. Reporting on employees seems increasingly difficult to the entrepreneurs. It is difficult, it is ambiguous, and it is additional layer of reporting that they have to prepare. That resulted in the fact that now we have a function that helps entrepreneurs to report on their employees. There are just 3 buttons: hire employee, fire employee, and pay a salary to an employee. Multi-bank turned out to be very convenient for onboarding of our customers. We provide our customers with an opportunity to automatically upload a bank extract, and then we will use it to calculate the taxable base. And it is interesting to say that a portrait of a young entrepreneur is such that they do not feel any difficulties in switching from an internet bank of an individual and a legal entity. They simply analyze it as a sticker on an apple. At first you get irritated about it, then you forget about it. So the documents, then the papers and agreements is something that is very much wanted by our customers. Normally, a contract is being changed once or twice a year, and again, beginners feel uncomfortable with that. For example, one of our respondents who participated in the questionnaire had a rather uncomfortable situation when the supplier simply cancelled the supply and did not return the money, and the person didn't even know where to go or what kind of application they have to submit or to sue them in court. That is the type of thing that banks should support entrepreneurs with, because a bank is considered by almost all individual entrepreneurs as a guarantee of quality and reliability, and they expect the bank to be reliable and hold responsibility for what we do. That is a QR code that you can use to upload and install our mobile app. You can also see my mail on this slide, so feel free to contact me. We'll be very happy to hear from you. Thank you very much. Any questions? No questions. Thank you very much. So we move on to the next presenter. The next presenter is Alexey Natekin, and the topic of his presentation will be the global trends in machine learning in 2019. Sorry, this one states, is you're a founder and a dictator. Am I right? Yes, anarchy and dictatorship. That's what is going to happen right now. Shall we begin? Well, just yesterday there was an exciting panel discussion on this very stage where different representatives of financial industry were talking about the ideas of AI, machine learning, and all kinds like that. And they discussed the issue of what you liked most about AI in 2019. There was no answer to that, but you'll get the answer right now. So a couple of words on myself, what I do. Indeed, anarchy and dictatorship in open data science community in Russia, 40,000 people, data fast, gathering 6,000 participants. We managed to cover 3.975 million students with the support of the Ministry of Education. Now, with the support of Sberbank, we received the official approval of the president. You can read it in the news on the now approved strategy of development of AI. We also support data scientists and different companies. Now, let us get back to the topic of the presentation, trends in machine learning and why we're talking about machine learning and not AI. Well, let's look at Google Trends first. What we see is that machine learning is growing, while the trends on AI has been slowing down since a year and a half now. Let me remind you of one more trend. You probably remember that 4 years ago, everybody was talking about big data, and then everybody started calling it AI. Well, how fair it is, you can take a look at Google Trends. Here is a spoiler. You can expect to see a new buzzword to show up in a couple of years, depicting exactly the same words. So what happened in 2019? Humanity lost one more favorite game. At first, they had the Go game, then it was Dota. The robots almost won in Dota. And in February to March, there was a match in StarCraft, and again, we lost to the robots. That was again a sample of using of machine learning that was used in those increasingly complicated games, but that's not all of it. Here is more inspiring examples. For example, teaching a virtual pet. Still, those are mostly fun, the amazing things you can do with new technologies. Nonetheless, the RL was finally reflected in a useful application, that is robotics. If you think that you'd like to do something with robotics, then you finally got a working tool in 2019. Google and OpenAI are investing in that, but there are already some applications showing up. They've been there before, but it's only now that it is a fully fledged tool. What else has happened in 2019? The key trend impacting the application of machine learning in different companies, including finance, is the fact that now we have an engineering component in that. There are more tools now enabling machine learning, much more reproducible and scalable. And in fact, the actual cost of introduction of ML in production has gone down dramatically. Integration with production several years ago would require a lot of effort, while in 2019 there are many more tools and opportunities. It is less expensive, and if you have engineers responsible for machine learning, it will be much more easier for you now.
I think there are specific answers to such questions as GDPR and data protection. It is a federated learning thing. We can discuss it on the sidelines of the meeting. There are many tools, frameworks, and it is much more easier to implement machine learning things. You can develop a prototype 4 times faster with high quality and all by yourself, because the professional integrators, that's what they're for. It will never be super fast with them. So let's continue talking about machine learning, and there are more useful instruments, tools for interpretation of the machine learning, and the interpretability issues are being raised, and there are answers given to interpretability. And there is another area which is not machine learning for security, but the security issues for machine learning. And we had a story recently when introducing this style of voice, some fraudsters managed to cheat and deceive some of the security staff in the organization. So machine learning is a new opportunity. It's not only a tool for defense, for protection, but it is also a tool for non-defense. So machine learning models could have different opportunities for breaching security and providing security. Machine learning and text analysis. You might remember that a few years ago there was hype with the smart chat bots, and the chat bots could answer everything. So fake presentations were made by Facebook about their super messenger, and until recently text analysis was the area which was cumbersome. Some things did work, but not as well as it was introduced in the advertising. There are amphitheaters, transformers, birds, and the other things that were introduced by some of the major companies, and you can download the pre-educated model, and you will be able to work with it. Some time will be needed to modify it for it to get new quality, but it is possible to download without registration and SMS. There was another great story. There was a company, OpenAI, and it developed a new architecture and new models, and they thought that that kind of model can generate fake news, and so they didn't risk even uploading the full version of it. And indeed, generators of sensible text do work, and humans still will be used to write text, but there is much progress in this area, in text analysis. There is a stand of Sberbanks, and they give you the leaflets on AI journey, and there are applications that will take and pass the test in Russian and even writing a composition. And here is a spoiler for you. And there are some applications that can gain 60%, 60 points. And could you imagine that? Some of the kids have provided a solution, and it might help you to write a composition in Russian. And we expect that that kind of applications will be able to score 80%. Here is a solution in cooperation with institution with Allen Institute, and it will be selecting the multiple choice. It is answering the multiple choice questions at high quality. Basic deep learning have shown many interesting things. There has been a lot of new projects. This waifu doesn't exist. This person doesn't exist. There were paintings and cups and pots. These are services for playing, but quite complicated objects could be generated. Until then, deep learners cannot handle all types of data, but this year there are better applications that have changed the status quo in their work with graphs. And of course, computer vision. You could have heard about fakes and the other things. And here is a reverse problem. If there is a picture of the person who died long time ago, but still video animation could be generated. Here is the top right. Here is a picture of Salvador Dali, and there is an animation generated. So, summing up, some of the things are working all right, and machine learning infrastructure is more reliable. That's what is most important, and there are some areas that have been under development for quite some time, and there are first deliverables in these areas. Machine learning will still be used thanks to such a thing as transfer learning. There will be new templates that one can download and use to meet one's ends, and you can hook it up to your processes. And a few words on generalization and working with the cause and effects connections. All the algorithms now work with different types of correlations between data. There is a classical example about a strange correlation, and it could have been possible to make a correlation between the death from hanging and some, say, science financing. On the face of it, there is no correlation between deaths and funding, but the algorithm will not know that, and so the algorithm is working hard to bring up, to uncover the correlations for the models to be generalized in a better way. And another area of research is as follows. The humans design algorithms, invent algorithms, and develop special procedures. And what if we write an algorithm that will be generating algorithms on its own, and they will be more accurate and faster? And spending a couple of million of hours, Google developed a neural architecture. This process was going on in 2019, and it will be possible to teach the algorithms that will be faster, and that they won't be obvious. Here are the types of architectures, and it means that we humans are not the only generator of the algorithms that will be used. So, as far as interpretation and is concerned, be ready that there will be algorithms that the people will not understand how they appeared and how they work, but that kind of algorithms will be working, and they will be working at higher quality. So more generalization capability and better families of algorithms for ML. So whether there will be artificial intelligence, but the machine learning will be more general. It's just a matter of a couple of years. That's it. Thank you. Thanks, Alexey. Any questions? Time to take questions from the floor. Okay. No questions. I must say that in 40 minutes there will be panel discussion in Hall 2 about AI, and with the people who are handling AI. There will be Maxim Yeremenko, there will be a colleague from Tinkoff, there will be Ivan Komarov and Mr. Vadim Kulik from VTB Bank who will be moderating it. So if you're interested what is over there, as an underpinning of the AR that the banks are using, do not hesitate to attend the session. Next speaker is Mr. Oleg Shibanov, and it is on active and passive investment management, MAN or RPA. So try to be fast. It will be great to have time. How much is left for a speaker? But I apologize. How much? When shall I warn you? 3 minutes before the end. Okay, let me tell you what are the new features, what is happening with the RPA, robo-advising. There are some facts on passive and active investment. The graph to the right shows what was the flow from active to passive investment management. It is the mutual funds market in the US. What's the reason why? Active investments are no good. The quality of management is low versus the passive investments, and institutional investments like management company believe that they know how to select the managers that will be managing the wealth, and robo-advising is a step forward for their portfolios to be better, and I will explain whether it is true to fact or not. And what is being recommended now is the Buffett idea. In 2013, when Buffett has been talking to his shareholders, he said that my advice to my wife is easy: 10% into spiders and 10% short-term liquidity into state bonds, so as to be able to manipulate the portfolio. And that is the right advice long-term when you see how the stocks and bonds are doing at the markets. However, this graph is tricky. It is the markets that survived between 1990 and 2016. The Russian market collapsed, and I would not claim that it is guaranteed profitability. If you not believe in disasters such as we will be eaten by robots and that the nuclear war will be there, you should think about the blue bars rather than by yellow bars on the screen. And when you think in terms of Russian realities, the individual accounts show that the investors do not understand something that they should understand, because there are some certain instruments with fixed profitability, and it is the state bonds and municipal bonds and virtually blue chips. It's a great story, and the investors should think twice what to do about it. On the other hand, how profitable is it to speculate at the stock market? Not profitable, because there was an article by great scientists who tried to analyze what has been happening with the stocks and bonds at different markets over a long period of time. 30 markets, Russia is one of them, and the profitability of the stocks were compared versus 1 month bond in the US, the most profitable instrument in the world. And when it is that set of stocks, it's better to have all the companies that have got bankrupt. And the bottom line is, and I like it, it is the second and the third part. There is only 1.33% that have generated all the net added value from investments, and if it is beyond the US, it is only 1% of all the companies that have been listed generated all net profit exceeding 100%. The other companies were just losing money for you, and just 40% of the companies have demonstrated the diminishing of profit worse than the 1 month from the stocks in the US. So 60% of the companies are losing. And so the question how to choose proper stocks, it's useless to select individual stocks. So another question, what has been happening with passive and active investments? Active investment by Sharpe ratio are worse than passive if you're talking about the expenses for the management company or broker. So when you think how should an ordinary person enter into it, I don't think it will be a good piece of advice to turn to an active broker. And when you think about the realities of the fight at the market, active managers within a certain period of time are no good. That's what has been happening with the profitability of the foundations of the funds in the market, and how they've been doing versus spiders. S&P 500 index, you could see that it was only in 17 years that most of the majors were losing to S&P 500, and 6 years have shown better results for active managers. There are some specific figures as well, but on the whole, managers are not capable to manage the capital, to manage the money that are entrusted to them. There is another fact, and mutual funds dynamics were studied, whether they are capable to demonstrate alpha, and if you analyze it thoroughly, the alpha is quite good for those, because they take up the risks of the small stocks and value growth stocks. And when you correlate it with those figures, after you subtract 1.2% different figures, even before the subtraction, it turns out that they lose versus a basic passive model. I adjusted the model slightly, and we write articles about it, and some of the risks are different, and I don't want to go into details, but what if you make the adjustment, the average alpha has a positive value. Talking about Russian realities of active and passive management, the figures are maybe not quite correct, but the story about the small little chimp or a monkey throwing darts is much better than the average active manager, and it's no good that there is such a loss. Why the managers are entrusted with the money? And we asked institutional investors this question, and the question was asked in Australia, but it is difficult for the other. Why do these institutional managers choose the other managers to receive super profitability? The correct answer is personal relationship. The institutional investors like the person, and then they list the points which are actually beaten by hard data. When you study it, then all those statements are wrong. The first thing it is that they can choose good managers, that the active management is good. They also say that their profitability is good, and that is number 5 and number 6. But all these things, unfortunately, come down how nice it is to mix with those familiar faces they respect.
And here's another research in Australia was on individual investors, what they do in the decision-making process. And again, it's sad because they base their decision on trust. They talk to the neighbor, they talk to the financial advisor, they think on their own. Some have said, I'm smart enough to make a decision on my own. So that's a story on how much ready you are to listen to the financial advisor. You can't talk to all of the neighbors and expect them to know something in the financial market, but financial advisors are regulated. And in the 1st of October 2019, one of the self-regulating organizations has adopted a new ethical code that enforces the financial advisor to put the interest of the investor above his own interest, rather than for the purposes to increase his fees. And that relates very well to the ETFs. The advice has to be adequate to what an individual investor expects to get. And a final remark on robo-advising. What can it do to the market? Well, technically, a robot-advisor can be any program eliminating the risk profile of the customer, analyzing the attitude of a customer to volatility and the fear of drawdown they have. And robo-advising was based on data when the robo-advising would be unexpectedly introduced by one of the brokers. And on the chart you can see the requests received by a robo-advisor. We see the decline of the interest because everybody who wanted to try have tried it at the beginning, and then a certain stabilization is happening. So robot-advising will not tell you buy this equity, it's great. It will tell you, have a look here, you might want to invest into that, but you're afraid of risks, so you should invest in bonds. Or on the contrary, if you are tolerant to the risk, go to the equity of this type. Mostly it is applicable to ETFs. So robo-advising doesn't seem to generate too much good. On the one hand, it should help with some basic things, but it turns out it helps on avoiding simple behavioral mistakes. When an investor is keeping a falling share for too long rather than closing the position, or keeping a growing share for too long again, or when they're trying to say, oh, Bitcoin was growing, so for 2018 my position will be to put everything in Bitcoin. That's the type of mistakes that can be mitigated, but on average it does not bring any big results. So the advantages are only with the most focused people. If they tell, oh right, I have Bitcoin or Apple, that's my investment ID and my pension portfolio will go there, then the advice of a robot would be very useful. The diversification is increased, the returns getting high, and they start trading. Those people who are doing it more or less reasonably anyway, and the portfolio is diversified, then unfortunately they will not get any particular benefits. The amount of equity in the portfolio would only be decreasing, and they start losing a little bit. That is not a meaningful impact, so probably it does not bring you any damage, but it won't bring any good either. Conclusions. Active investments look historically rather weak as compared to passive investment. It doesn't make them bad. It simply means that they take the risks that are not quite exciting for a simple individual investor. They provide them with an access of different types of risk, from momentum risks to leverage, and in this regard, they would finally result in the fact that they would not be interesting for an individual investor. Robo-advising does not particularly help, although it mitigates behavioral mistakes. And the bottom line for Russia is that an attempt to switch to high-quality financial advice might go through robo-advising, but we do not know how easy that would be. Thank you for your attention, and if there are any questions, I'm ready to take them. Yes, please. Thank you. That was interesting. My question is on statistic and qualification. 10 years ago, I've passed an exam. It was very simple. And generally, I consider to be authorized to act as a tax advisor, but I would be very bad in that. And the statistic you brought on a monkey you've compared to, have you analyzed the initial qualification of the investment advisors? That's a great question. We've compared the efficiency of a monkey investor to the managers of investment funds. So it wasn't about individual investors. It was for those who are expected to be qualified in management companies. So in this regard, the comparison is quite tough. And compared to the Russian mutual funds and ETFs, again, it is quite dramatic. So the mutual fund managers, I wouldn't say that I've met too many qualified ETFs managers and mutual fund managers. I think it might offend them. So each one of them is qualified. It's maybe that they undertake certain risks that investors could have avoided. All right, thank you. Any further questions? All right, thank you very much indeed. It was excellent. We are on time, and now please welcome the Director of Work of the Banking Sector from SAS. That is neural networks. Everything is explainable, no magic. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Would you please put my slide on the screen? My name is Alexey Rundasov. At a SaaS company, I'm responsible for work with the banking sector and telecom. I represent the side of a customer. I was doing a lot of exciting things on both sides, on the side of the vendor and the customer. Now let's talk about AI, machine learning, but I decided to restrict myself to neural networks. And everything I'm going to talk about today is generally valid for other instruments, algorithm of AI and machine learning. So we are all fighting for leadership in the area of AI, and we're happy to hear that the president has officially signed the national strategy of AI development in Russia, which means we're going to introduce something not just in the finance, which is a leader in this regard, but also in other sectors of the economy. So if you take a look at how the governments of different countries relate to AI, you would see that the share of companies introducing AI or using it already varies from one region to another. So China is a leader, which is great. That is a very wise attitude. Then we have the US and a number of European countries. Unfortunately, Russia is not on the list, and we would really like Russia to be on this map at a certain time, and the share of companies using AI in their activities would be higher. We've conducted a question poll among bankers. We asked them, where do you see the role of AI? How could it support you? And how algorithm or machine learning could increase your operational efficiency? And there were three key types of activities named: process automation, credit scoring, and data preparation. It's great to see that credit scoring is one of the key processes within the bank, and application of AI can dramatically enhance it. So the idea is that both the assessment and decision-making process shifts from a human being to a machine, and it can be done in a real-time mode. From my own experience, I can tell you that that type of application of AI from complicated algorithm of machine learning in Russia, we have one of the most advanced schools in the world. Russian banks were among the first to launch online credit lines, saying yes or no to a credit request in 30 seconds, and that is really cool. But it all started with some basic things, some kind of regressions, something that is easy to interpret. But now all our customers are willing to use something more advanced, together with classical algorithm of the efficiency assessment of a particular borrower. If we take a look at the global situation, just last year, the German central bank published a white paper called Big Data Meets Artificial Intelligence. And the picture that you've seen on the previous slide was borrowed from this paper. The regulator of Germany stated that AI is a fact of reality, but here is our vision on how AI can be used in the banking processes, in credits, in automation, in request processing. A very similar thing was published by the French central bank. They are worried that despite the fact that the number of companies using AI in France is big, banking sector is lagging behind this trend. And they are providing stimuli to improve the situation. A number of other regulators are also trying to standardize their approach to application of AI, models validation and assessment of model risks. And they launch different types of programs in order to boost application of those technologies. So what is an AI? That's how it looks, a neural network where there are very many different dependencies and nothing is clear. But how can you understand why the machine has taken a particular decision? You might take a look at any other AI. It might be gradient boosting or anything. You cannot understand what is happening here. As a person from business, I cannot understand what it is. It is difficult, but it looks like it's worth it. So with one of our customers in Brazil, we've introduced and protected this idea to the central bank, the idea of using of AI and neural networks, and even gradient boost to the regulator, and that enabled them to really improve the quality of their credit portfolio. And you have to be prepared for that. We've started doing research, and the research mentioned by SAS and GARP have analyzed 3 key obstacles to using of AI with the bankers. First and foremost, that's the quality of data. Any IT project is at a deadlock whenever there is poor quality of data. Sometimes it can be easy to resolve, sometimes it's not, but that's a fact. The second most frequent problem is the level of engagement of the bank's management. Use of AI requires certain organizational shifts. The culture of the company has to change, the mindset of the company has to change, and the leadership has to support this process in order to make it efficient. And the third one is interpretability of the model. People are worried that they will not be able to understand what is the outcome of work of AI. One of the reporters stated that sooner or later, models would be defined on their own, algorithms would be written on their own, and that is true. But in any case, we need to come up with a mechanism to be able to assess how and why the machine has created this result and how it can impact our business and how we can explain it to the regulator. Because if the regulator is not prepared for that, we will not be able to apply those models. We are growing and evolving, and we want our customers to be happy and be able to interpret difficult models of AI and in SAS, we try to explain those partial dependencies, Lyme, ICE, already there. So what we do, we use this neural network and we try to turn it upside down, to explain it as business users so that we can take a look at that and say, yeah, that's the decision made by the machine due to this and that reason. So basically, we turn the neural network we've had into the initial chaos into something that is more interpretable. It looks just a little bit like a regression that is being actively used by the regulator. So we try to take something difficult and simplify it in order to make it easy to be applied. I can tell you that that type of algorithm can also be applied in an online mode for some complicated objectives like fighting fraud and open source solutions. All that can be done very quickly. Dear colleagues, thank you. I try to bring us back to the time schedule. Are there any questions? Oh, there is a question. Excellent. Could you please briefly explain, from the viewpoint of a regulator, how can you prove the fact that it is all clear and can be easily explained? Well, I cannot answer this question easily. I can provide you with my business card and we can continue the conversation. I will do that over a cup of tea. All right, let's do that. Thank you very much. And the next presenter is Artyom Kalikhov. Well, actually, my name is Igor Kuzmichev. We had a last-minute replacement. Artyom couldn't be here, so I'll do that for him. I'm a business development director at Waves Enterprise, and today I'm going to speak about such tools like cash pooling, digital letter of credit, tokenization of debt liabilities based on blockchain. The previous session, Vladimir Verkhoshinsky, the CEO of Alpha Bank, was saying that they introduced a case together with the X5 retail group. He forgot to mention that the technological platform they used was from our company, Waves Enterprise, and it was using blockchain. So what are the key problems for a big company, a holding like a big retailer or a big manufacturing company or a logistical company? First and foremost, high expenses for treasury service. And there are different approaches to treasury management, centralized and decentralized. Decentralized approach is when there are many different treasurers in dependent affiliated societies managing the accounts in a bank, while the centralized approach is when all settlement accounts are located in the hands of several treasurers. In the first case, it means high expenses for the treasurer service. In the second case, it is high workload on the treasurers. We have to bear in mind the risk of operational errors that can happen whenever the operations are made manually, and there is also a risk of fraud, which is also important. The concept is quite simple. In this case, by Alpha Bank and X5 retail group, there are two master accounts and several other accounts with the subsidiaries. By several, I mean several hundreds. And we have two cash flows. The first, writing off the excesses from the participating account to one master account, and the second flow is adding up to the participating account to top them up for the payrolls and payments to the suppliers. Here is the actual cash pooling when the money is actually being transacted from one account to another. As for the excessive cash, it is a matter of transaction from the master account to the participating account. The payment is happening automatically. The money is held at the master account and written off at the end of the day, which is quick and convenient. So what are the advantages of blockchain technology in this regard? Blockchain resolves the matter of integrational objective, the connection of infrastructure of the bank and the customer. Those are closed type infrastructures, and the classical remote banking is when a customer comes to this profile using internet, and there is always risk of phishing, another type of fraud operation. And in our case, we use local net, which is safer. We have a high criteria for reliability of information. We use advanced encryption and digital signature, and we also use smart contracts, which make sure that validation and automation of data is happening, and some part of services done by the treasuries are now automated. That's the architecture of the system. The mode of a blockchain is within the structure of Alpha Bank and X5 Retail Group. In between, there is a direct encrypted channel, and the nodes are integrated with NDS, which enables us to do cash pooling and payment instruction. On the side of the customer, the treasurer uses the web app and will do the integration with CRP to do pure host-to-host to take off the load from the treasurer.
The architecture is quite simple, and we did manage to make two infrastructures for two separate players who are conditionally independent and do not trust each other. What are the parameters to manage these services? Not that many. There's a limit to write off. There is periodicity of writing off, and there is a purpose of the payment, which is indicated when writing it off. And there is an intercorporate loan contract, so that the regulator will not think twice why one company is transmitting money to the account of the other. And there is another set of parameters, and it is possible to pay only with one's own assets or by just holding the money on the account. What are the effects of Alpha and X5? First, the transactions are safe, and there is a saving on treasury. The treasury can do some other operation. The liquidity is increased because the money is accumulated at the master account, and they could be used more efficiently if the interest rate is too high. It is possible to customize the application, because the client has the application on the client side, and all the business logics is in the X5 application, and they can do whatever they wish with the application. They can even develop it, and we have only ABS, automatic banking S, at servicing at the Alpha Bank, and there are all the preconditions for the client to trust the bank. It's a simple case, and now we are developing the infrastructure to connect multiple clients, and it'll be the system handling multiple banks and the clients. It is indeed the system that the banks would like to manage the pools of many clients, and the clients would like to deal with a few banks. Another case that we have developed for a metallurgical company to optimize loans. The company has got liabilities for, say, supplied services or products, and the company would like to deter the payment, and it sends an offer on turning the indebtedness into loan, like with the special terms of discount rate and the payment time. If agrees, then there is a conversion of the indebtedness into loan, and there is a platform for that, and every actions is recorded in the blockchain and supported by the electronic signature. And sometime later, one of the parties could request the payment to return the money. Looks like the system is straightforward. Why the need for it? Indeed, it is needed because there will be the secondary tokenized loans when there will be a law on digital financial assets. Quite possible that the law will be enacted in the fall, and then there will be additional added value to such a system. Banks will be included into the chain, and it will be a guarantor for both the client, for both parties, that the money will be remitted. And here are the three cases that's when the blockchain is used, and it is box solutions virtually, and any bank, any customer could develop the system to meet the requirements, and the blockchain will make it possible to invest, and it will be safe because of the inscription, and it will be a trusted system because both parties will trust the processes which is applied to the system. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you. We would like to invite Mr. Stanislav Straupe, and the topic is quantum computation, the status of the technologies. It's an unusual talk for this conference. I've got nothing to do with fintech. I'm experimental physicist, and I am from the Center of Quantum Technologies of Moscow State University, and we are dealing with quantum computations. And I wanted to say how quantum computations from applied science is turning into an industry, and what's happening over there. So when the productivity of the computational system is calculated, everyone refers to more or low the number of transistors double every couple of years, and that's what is happening in the quantum computation, quantum computers in the past couple of years. As we look at the qubits, the amount of qubits, that's the carry of the information in quantum computers, it's doubling every couple of years, and the growth is exponential. And we have less time for observation than Moore had, and so it's too early, premature to speak how long it will be lasting, but it's a trend. And what is important is that there is another exponent imposed on it. The qubits are growing, and the complexity of doing modeling at the classical computer is growth by exponentially. And if we cast a classical view on quantum computers, and if we say that if there is a system that cannot be modeled on a conventional computer, it could be used as a new computer that could be superior to the classical one, and the growth of the power of computation is twice as exponential as it really is. And it makes it so very interesting that there is an area that attracts not only scientists but businesses as well. What should we know about quantum computers? On one hand, it is universal computation. If we will try to have a vision of the future, and if we will be optimistic and if we think that it will be growing, there are no barriers, there are no bans to develop a universal computer that will be doing just the same things as a standard computer, but it will be possible to make some computation much faster and with higher quality. What's the status? We are a noise NISQ, it's a number of the qubits, and what these noise devices could do. At the moment, there's no experimental demonstration that the device of such a scale could solve a practical task, but we could expect that it will happen in the near future, and I will try to convince you that it will be happening. And though we are at earlier stages, most of the tech companies that are developing software or hardware, one way or another, are investing into quantum technologies. If you look at the reference list, it is IBM, Intel, Microsoft, and Alibaba that have the divisions that develop their processors or software. And there are no quantum computers per se, but the developers of this software are there, and they're working hard. There is a list of the technological startup. Some of them attract investments heavily. Listed over here are tech startups developing hardware, and what's on the left side of the slide, these are the companies that are dealing with the software. It's the global market, but if we see what's happening in Russia, there are budget allocations provided for it, and going along different channels, scientific foundations, and it is some kind of scientific technological initiatives. There were two centers that emerged on quantum computation. I have the honor to represent one, and the other is in the Mises Institute, and there are other entities, Baumanov University, Russian Quantum Center, etc. Primarily, they are state-owned institutions and applied science, and which is building hardware. As far as software and algorithms are concerned in Russia, the things are not that good, and there are some companies that are trying to use a quantum algorithm or quantum-inspired, and trying to understand unorthodox approaches to use classical computers. And we do not have that yet, but we undertake to present some incentives for the computer community. So how well advanced all these things are? I would like to show you the following picture. It is. It hasn't been officially published by Google. It's actually something that has been leaked, but I think it will be public domain in the near future. So nothing happens if I show it to you. The more so that I have taken it from open sources. A couple of weeks ago, there was a preprint that got into the internet, and all those who managed to download it got hold of it. In a couple of months, Google will make it public, and it is a quantum processor, and that's what it is. It is a Sycamore. At the picture to the left, it is more than 50 qubits, and it did manage for the first time to do something that was holy grail for the computer society, and it provided an algorithm that computed the function much faster. And it doesn't matter what kind of algorithm and what kind of function it was, but what it means is that 10,000 years will be required to do the same algorithm at the classical computer. And that's and at that, it was quite a powerful computer. It was a computational cluster. I don't know the exact specifications, but taking into account that it's Google, their computing resources are huge. And so it indicates what a quantum leap it is between what the quantum system could do and what is the capability of the classical one. There's one thing you have to understand, because this particular algorithm is not practical. Its only task was to be complicated for the conventional computer and the simple for quantum computer. And it's whether it will be possible to make it practical, it's quite another question. And there is no 100% positive answer to this, but I will try to show you why we could be optimistic about it. Let's imagine, let us assume that we have a large quantum computer and we did manage to eliminate all the errors. What could it have in offer for us? There's a wide range of quantum algorithms, and it could resolve us the problems. There is a class of problems that quantum computer exceeds the conventional while exponentially. It is, for example, breaking the numbers into multipliers. It is reversion of matrix, and quantum computer has exponential advantages, and that was the motivation to build such a computer. There is a modeling of the quantum systems. It is quantum chemistry, medicine, and the acceleration over here is exponential as well. But it is not omnipotent. It could resolve some of the problems faster, but not that much, like quadrature acceleration. And if you have some of the problems that are resolved better than just listing them, and then the quantum computer will be better, but not exponentially. Computationally difficult problems are as follows. Any problem of global optimization related to machine learning boils down to computational problems that could be described as combinatory optimization at some of the discrete systems. And it turns out that even if there is no special problem in these graphs, a quantum computer could identify acceleration. And how big the acceleration and when we will be able to see it, it's another matter. Here is a graph from Intel company that did modeling of the problem of MaxCat on the graph. It's one of the optimization, and so they modeled it, the solution for the super conductor, something that IBM has, and they have come up to 20 qubits, and at the square to the left you could see a blown up area for the number of the qubits that are available now. And there are 50 and 74, but there are no that kind of points over here, because the modeling was done on a classical computer. And the blue to the right is what could be provided by classical algorithm. And you can understand that the inclination of those curves is different. at a certain point there will be a crossing, and we can see that classical algorithm is ahead, leading, but at the area of a few hundreds or thousand qubits, there will be a crossing of the two curves, and it will be of practical significance, and it is very hard to overestimate it, and anything could be converged for different types of global optimization. And if that kind of crossing points happens in the near future, then I think up to the level of a few thousand qubits, we will be able to reach within the next 5 or 10 years maximum. And this system will be advantageous versus classical algorithm. What could it bring possibly to financial applications? Because I, of course, knew where I will be lecturing. It turned out that there are not that few problems. There is a review of the financial applications of the quantum algorithm, and there are many problems that allow quantum acceleration. And in some cases, the acceleration could be exponential. It might be the problems by linear programming or Monte Carlo methods. So the main message is that the algorithms do exist, and many of them could be applied, and as soon as we have the hardware that will be good enough to be superior to the existing conventional computers, there will be a heightened interest for this particular story. If I still have a couple of minutes, I will be brief and concise, and I can tell you there are different physical systems that will be the hardware. The most advanced are superconducting qubits. The Google qubits is using this kind of principle, and there are some bottlenecks in this respect. It's quite possible the quantum computer would be different. There's a purely superconducting solution that will make use the solutions in the superconducting industry. And I would like to do the sales talk in Moscow State University. We are developing the prototypes of the quantum computers, and the ambition is to launch of 50 qubits computer based on the atom, and I think this system will be online available. It will be cloud computation system. It will be used in research computation, but it will be possible to test some of the algorithms using it. To conclude, I would like to emphasize that this area is being developed vigorously, and the people working in this area believe that the devices that will be received in the near future will provide advantages for practical applications. Thank you. Thank you.
Секунду, есть вопросы?
That was very interesting, but we have some questions to you now. I wanted to ask about computers like D-Wave. They work in a somewhat different manner, but it looks like that they tackle a similar class of objectives, and the technology seems to be quite advanced. It can be purchased by Google or IBM. How would you assess the class of objective that they tackle? What is your assessment? What is the current state of development of this industry? Yes, indeed, D-Wave company has been in existence for quite a while. It promotes its technologies. It's not quite a quantum computer. It's more a type of a computation machine. And since it's not quite a quantum computer, it is hard to be persuasive enough to show that it has some kind of advancement. And nobody can guarantee over to you that you will keep this type of advancement, because what Google is doing at the moment is well proven. While in case of D-Wave, it's hard to prove something. Probably what D-Wave is doing is undoubtedly useful and important. If there is a certain device that is tackling this objective in practice, we should use it, but I'm not sure whether this type of approach will be able to survive. I have some doubt on that. All right, thank you very much. I wanted to ask you about the methodology you're using. How can you make algorithm quantum algorithm? Those are not the same algorithm that we are used to operate with. So what should be done? Should one carefully study physics, or should we change a mindset? What is necessary? Well, I guess that's the question that there is no answer to. Creation of algorithm is generally art. Creation of quantum algorithm is even more of an art. And I would say it's a matter of insight when you cannot come up with a certain trick that you can use, like the global and general feature of the functions, but it is more of an exception. As for the algorithm that provides for acceleration in the power of 2, we can simplify this objective to something more basic to provide for some optimization. And then you can just imagine it as some kind of a spin in a graph, and then you have to compare it with the parameters of your objective and simulate it on a quantum computer, and that would generate for some kind of acceleration. And then it depends on how quickly you'll be able to do that, and it is not that obvious. So the examples I cited is just a simulation in terms of numbers. We have reasons to believe that it would be like that, but you can code a broad number of objectives and calculate that. Whether that is the right approach or not, but that is the best we have at the moment. And there is a big scope for activities, but my key message is that people working on design of algorithm might look in this direction. Any further questions? Thank you very much, Stanislav. Thank you. And we move on.